Welcome to Capitol Hill Mixtape, presented by RIAA. I'm your host, Tom Cleese. Welcome to Capitol Hill Mixtape, presented by RIAA. I'm your host, Tom Cleese, and today it's my pleasure to have a conversation with a congressman representing the San Fernando Valley, Congressman Tony Cárdenas. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate it.
So we like to ask everyone who first comes on the show, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into public service, and what were you listening to at the time that'll always remind you of making that leap?
Okay. I was born and raised in Pacoima, a very immigrant, very minority community, and I'm the youngest of 11. So my parents settled there after coming from Mexico, and I was approached about running for office by a Chicano activist, and eventually he convinced me to realize that we'd never had anybody who grew up there to represent us. Usually it was people from the other side of town who decided to run, good people, but just not organically from our neighborhood. It was very much minority and very much low income, like my parents' family. And so I went home to my wife, Norma, and asked her for permission to run. And she said, oh, she didn't know any better. So yeah, go ahead. 26 years later, here I am, State Assembly, City Council, now in the United States Congress. And it's really interesting when you run a grassroots campaign. What happens at the end of the night is people are getting all the information and inputting and getting it ready for the next day. And we had CDs back then in the 90s. And Belinda brought her CDs, and the number one CD that got played every night, and sometimes on and on and on, was Brenton Wood's Greatest Hits. So for my campaign, it had to be Brenton Wood's Greatest Hits is the album that we listened to over and over and over in that campaign.
That's incredible. So I do have to ask you if we can go back in time a little bit more. You know, you said that you're one of a family with 11 kids.
Yeah.
How do your music tastes differ from your 10 other siblings?
Oh, well, I'm the youngest. So we had only one record player, and we usually had only one radio at the time that was on. So with my parents, it was Spanish language radio and music, or it was Antonio Aguilar or Vicente Hernandez. And folks like that, mostly mariachi music from Mexico. And when it comes to my older brothers and sisters, they listen to music from the 50s and also the 60s, et cetera. So what I gravitated toward early on in my life was Motown. To this day, I love Motown. So, music that came out of Motown is really a big part of my life and part of my upbringing.
You've been through this whole journey of public service at so many different levels, and now you've been a congressman through some really interesting times. We'll call them interesting. So when you're getting ready for the real work on the floor of the House, what do you listen to pump up? Like, what helps you get ready for these historic moments?
Well, when I'm driving around, it's usually Spanish language, like something like K-Love or something like that, ballads and things of that nature. And that runs through all the genres. Rock en español, etc. And that's what I listen to when I'm in the car. But when I'm in my office, it's usually pretty quiet here. So what's going on in my mind, and I usually picking up on something that may be a Stevie Wonder song. My favorite of all times is Prince. Prince is my favorite artist. I believe he was a genius in every sense of the word. And he went through his struggles, even in his career, actually changes his name for a little bit to try to make his point, etc. And he did just fine and proved it. You got to continue to be yourself and continue to figure out what it is to continue to be creative and effective at your career. And this is my career. I mentioned I've been an elected official for 26 years now. And being an elected official, you get to do some fun stuff as well. Richie Valens went to my high school. And so I got to name a post office in Pacoima, where Richie and I are from. He came before my time, but I got to name a post office after Richie Valens. So that was really pretty awesome. He's very famous in our community, well, famous around the world. And who doesn't know the tune La Bamba, right? And so from my hometown. So it's been an honor to be able to do that for him and his family.
That's really exciting. I'm going to sort of drill down a little bit more on the Prince thing. If you could pick one Prince song that would sort of typify the feeling that you get when you're about to be a part of this really solemn and serious process, or even a Prince song that helps you to get out of that mindset and to return to, maybe a relative state of calm. Is there one that you can pick out?
Well, I would say, when you look at the seriousness of what we do, maybe When Doves Cry or maybe Purple Rain. Because with Prince, there's always a slow moment in the song where it gets really dramatic, but also there's upbeat as well. And that's one of the things I love about. That's why I call him a genius, because he really knew how to make an eclectic piece of work, not only in individual songs, but in the whole collection of what he came up with. And so those are some of the songs that come to mind to me. And, when you really want to feel upbeat, maybe 1999, that's about as upbeat as any Prince song gets.
Definitely. Well, so thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Well, one last thing that I wanted to ask you, I know that there's things that you are working on, a variety of them for your constituents. Some of them are a little bit more notable and get more press attention than others. Is there something that you and your staff are working on right now that you want people to know a little bit more about, even if they're not necessarily at the top of the headlines?
The first thing that comes up is 988. We're all familiar with 911, but now we have a national phone number that just kicked off July of this year called 988. And that's where people can call if they're having a mental health crisis or a mental health issue. You now can call 988 anywhere in the country. But we have to build it up so that it can be as responsive and effective as 911. We all take 911 for granted, whether you're in a rural part of the United States or in the biggest city. You can call 911 and know that somebody's going to come to help. But when it comes to mental health, that's more of a specialty issue. We need to make sure that we fortify it so that good mental health professionals can answer that phone and actually help somebody and in the moment, but also make sure that we have enough good professionals who are dedicated to go out there and help them in that moment of crisis and get them the ongoing help that they need. And to me, music is a big part of what it is and what it takes for people to actually be in a moment and then get out of that moment. Music is a wonderful opportunity for people to soothe their mind and their soul, to make sure that they can maybe get out of that funky moment and actually get into feeling better. And then obviously always beyond that, being able to be in a position to ask for and get professional help. I come from the Latino community, and in many communities, mental health is a stigma, and we have to break those barriers and realize that there's nothing wrong with admitting that you need help, that you can use some help. And around every corner, in every family, there's always somebody that if you ask for help, they're going to give you help. They're going to be there for you. So to me, 988 is a much more formal way to bring together all that we need to make sure that when people are in a mental health crisis moment, that they're going to get some help. I have a bill going on right now to help fortify all of that. And we're going to have to continue to do that until we can get 911 and 988 to be a household name and a household tool when people need help.
Congressman, thank you so much, not just for your work on that issue, but for taking the time to tell us about that. I know that in the music community, a growing awareness and sensitivity to mental health issues has been a top priority, and we're really grateful for the work that you and your colleagues are doing. So Congressman Tony Cárdenas, thank you so much for joining us on Capitol Hill Mixtape, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you again soon.
Appreciate it, Tom. Good talking with you. Hopefully we can do this again soon.